Jesse. Welcome to the video lesson here for Ain't Got Love, and I'll try to keep this a little bit shorter as you and I had spoken about. I'll just cover the basics here, but of course we're in DADGAD tuning, and we've done the chart very differently this time. So I'm just going to go through and show you sort of my left hand positions and cover just a few things that I think are kind of important in the right hand as well. And just if you're wondering what guitar I'm using here, actually, this is a 0021 Golden Era reissue. It's a great sounding guitar that I've cherished for many years that was fortunately not lost over in the flood. This was one of the good ones that was at home with me. So that's the guitar. But moving on into this tune, it begins with a pickup passage. You'll see just I've notated it like a 16th and an 8th note there right in the beginning, where you go from the A string, hammer on, and then get the open D string. And I did not put hammer-ons and pull-offs and things like that in this chart because, again, we made it more like a chord chart instead of a note-for-note transcription. But I thought that a lot of that would be very, very straight ahead, and you'd pick up on that, knowing a bit more now about, your level and where you're playing and all that good stuff. So we start out there with that pickup, and I'm just going to play through the intro and then talk about it just in brief. And then it goes into the verse. But you'll see in the chart, I have put in this little fill there on the bass. It's just like a bass fill there in measure 2 and also in measure 6. Just on the last beat where I've indicated that it pulls off from the 3rd fret of the A string. And then you slide in to the 5th fret of the 5th string, and I guess you could match the pitch with the open D. But the reason I'm saying that is what happens on the intro, and I hear that time and time again, so it was important enough that I thought I should put it in the chart. But as you listen to that recording, you're also going to hear that there are several times where he'll do something similar but not quite exactly those notes. It's just any sort of basic blues lick in D would suffice there. So you could, instead, alternatively, pull off from the 3rd fret of the 4th string. You could do that, or you could do really anything else that's a variation on that. So I just wanted to mention that, and you can take that as you will, and add your own things to it. So that said, the only other thing of note there on the intro, and you got the left hand shapes from this video and also above in the chord chart. But the only other thing in the right hand that I wanted to mention is you will see in measure 4 and in measure 8, where I have the quarter notes on beats 3 and 4. Those are staccato, and I did not put that in the chart, but just to explain that in brief, you want to just, it's like he's strumming, and I would just take the back of your nail and just strum downwards like that. And as soon as you hit the note, just lift up a little bit, and sort of, hit it and then stop it and then do the same thing again. And that's a very distinctive part that I heard, on the intro and all throughout those instrumental sections where he's doing that to the quarter note. So I'll play that once more, the intro, and then we'll just talk about the verse. There's a lot of repetition there, so we won't have to go through too much more. So it's hard to play them and talk. There's the staccato part. Okay, then it goes into the verse, and it's the same chord shapes, and you just got those fills again that I've notated. Okay, you get to measure 13, and I think in the vocal that's where it goes to If You Ain't Got Love. Okay, so what's going on there? And I just bypassed measures 9 through 12. I didn't even talk about them because it's the same chords we already talked about and that you know from the intro. But the verse does begin at measure 9 there. That's where the vocal comes in. You got 4 bars of the D5 to the G minor 11, just like on the intro. And then when you go into the Ain't Got Love part, if you ain't got love, that's I'm calling that G5 add 9. I'm getting that by flattening my 3rd finger and just doing sort of a half bar with it, and then leaving the rest of the strings open. I've actually notated in the chord diagram there that the 3rd string is muted, and it's okay for that to be muted. It's sort of the way my fingers work with doing a partial bar there. It mutes that string, and that's okay because the pitch is actually covered right there on the fretted note. It's the same as if I were hitting the open 3rd string. But if you don't want to do the partial bar, or if with your particular hands it's more comfortable to actually use a series of fingers like the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, well then quite naturally that 3rd string will be open, and that's okay too. It's just doubling a note that's already in the chord, and that's okay. In fact, there's a slight advantage to that because it might make it sound a little bit thicker. But however you want to use your left hand in the fingering there is fine. At any rate, it's G5, and then it goes to the B flat. I call it B flat add 9. Forgive me, that guitar is just a little bit out of tune. These strings don't owe me anything. They've been thoroughly beat up by many hours of playing. And I use this guitar on the work on this tune, so my hands sweat quite a bit. But anyways, moving back, you go from this G5. Okay, we'll just put up with it. Sorry about that guitar being a little bit out. I'm using my index finger here on the 5th string, just grabbing, you know, the notes with my right hand. Open 3rd string, and then your 3rd finger on the 2nd string, pinky on the 1st string. And of course, because this is tuned down a whole step, this string, instead of this really being a D note, it's now a C note. So that's the 9th of the B flat. That's why I call it B flat add 9. But forgive me again, I know I'm getting off into theory, and I don't intend to. It just kind of happens. Okay, so back at measure 13, if you ain't got love, does it again, and then it goes up to, it's like a walk up to the D chord again. So I called that C5 add 9. It's real simple. It's just like that exact shape. 2nd finger there, 3rd finger there. And one of the things I like about DADGAD is that there's these great chord positions that, you know, they look like even standard chords in standard tuning, but put it in DADGAD and they've got such a different sound. That would normally be a C9 chord in standard tuning, and it still kind of is in DADGAD, but because again this 2nd string is tuned down a whole step, this is the C note, so you've got that C against the D, so you get that great sort of spread there. At any rate, you go through that on your way back to the D5 and G minor 11 part that you know well by this point. So again, starting at 13. And here you walk up through an A minor 7. So you take this G minor 11 shape and you literally just move it up 2 frets. Okay? And you can just sort of strum through there. There's no bad notes even if you do hit an open string. On the fretboard diagram, I've muted out the A string and the D string, but you know, even now I'm hitting the D string. If you hit one of those, it's perfectly fine. And then it goes up to a B flat major 7, which is really the best way to get this, and what I heard on the recording is just use your third finger on the 6th string and grab with your other, in the right hand with your second and third finger, grab the top 2 strings open. And then you move back to that A minor 7 shape. And then there is this walk down in the bass I've just notated. You ain't got nothing at all is the lyric under it, or over it. Okay. And that's a section where you probably just want to take your thumb and strum downwards. I played that slowly, so you'll see in the right hand I actually used, thumb, index, and middle finger. But at tempo, you'll probably just be strumming through it. Okay. And then after that, you just repeat back to measure 5, where there's a 4-bar guitar and harmonica instrumental thing going on, and then back into the second verse at measure 9. And that's the form of the verse. So I'm just gonna play through it in its entirety, and then we'll move on and talk about what comes after that. Starting at measure 9 in the verse. Okay, and that staccato part there is always in place where I've indicated, like in measure 8, which is, of course that instrumental part where it's guitar and harmonica, right before the verse. Okay, so you go through the verse, you'll see that I've said it repeats 2 times, you play it a 3 of total, so there's like 3 verses there. When you get through that, then you go into the solos, and that's, on the recording, the harmonica solo, and he's just backing him up. So it's basically the same progression. You'll see that you just go to measure 19, where the solos begin. Same thing in the left hand. I messed up. Same thing in the left hand, starting again at measure 19. And there's a little walk down there in measure 20. I've notated it as the F5. You'll see that in the diagram. Okay, and then you just solo over the verse changes. So I won't talk about that again, but it's the exact same left and right hand things that I've spoken about. You just go back to measure 9 and play through the form, and then the solo section does do some interesting things and has some guitar fills in it that I thought were important, so I had to notate this kind of in a strange format. But you go back to the DS with the beginning of the solos, you play through it, and then you go to the coda, okay? And the coda is just, the solos are continuing, but I had to, instead of writing everything out again and making this like a 10-page chart, I did this in the interest of keeping things neat and orderly, and hopefully easy to follow for you. So you're going through, and on the solo section, I'm going to begin at the coda on measure 23, and there's a guitar fill in shortly thereafter. Yeah, I think, is that right? Yeah. There we go. That's measure 24. So, I'll tell you what I'm going to do is I want to, let's see, let me just get my bearings. I'm going to begin at measure 13, as though I were on the solos, and play through measure 18, which is where then I go to the coda section and I hit that lick. So, starting with that in mind. Same chords. a bridge where the vocal comes back in. Very briefly, without spending too long on repetitive sections, I do want to talk about those two little guitar licks that I put in that happen with, with the harmonica during the solo section. Measure 24, where it's just a series of power chords. You'll see in the tablature, and I paid very careful attention to this as I was going for it, you'll see that I've notated it as being starting at the 12th fret, and by the way, I'm just using partial bars between my third finger and my first finger as I'm grabbing these notes, like that. Third finger, first finger, third finger, moving the third finger down to the 7th fret, second, first, moving the first down. That's my left-hand fingering pattern there. But the reason that I've notated this as starting on the 12th fret is that I really wanted to notate it as starting up here, on this set of strings, where everything's much closer fret-wise. Now, if it's something where you're really having any real challenges with the material and getting it to happen in time, consider this as an alternative way of getting the same notes. And particularly because I know that your goal here is to make this stuff your own and not to play it strictly verbatim. I find that I still transcribe and do chord charts as close as I can make them, because when I was learning guitar, as if I'm not still, I'm always learning guitar, but particularly in the early days for me, I would learn things as closely as I could, sort of just to steal everything I could before then going on and hopefully kind of assimilating it into some sort of original thing, But when I listened, the tone is very different when you spread those notes out on the bottom as opposed to in the middle, And I hear that a lot in electric guitar solos too, where it's like whether or not you hit like a D note here or up here, or if I had up there. But at any rate, without getting too long-winded about that, if you can work it up to speed, I think this is the sound that I certainly heard on the recording, is that he was starting at the 12th fret. Then go back into the chorus. Okay, and then at 34 we've got this triplet pattern where he's coming out of the solo. Okay, all that is the top 3 strings. I'm using my first, second, and third finger, and it's just a quarter note triplet. I won't talk too much about rhythms here. If you got questions about them, just let me know. But it is a quarter note triplet, so it's got that cool feel. And in the bass, that's really where your motion is happening. So your thumb in the right hand is grabbing all the notes, and in your left, it's just going. And I'm putting a little bend there on the last one. I didn't notate that again because we didn't make this an exact transcription in the interest of time and all that other stuff. But that is what's going on. Okay. Or actually, I take that back, I just see on the notation, I've left it. That's what I've notated. I think I just played it with this going throughout the whole thing. And again, that's just freedom and expression. You'll do what you like in the moment. So there you go. Then you come out of solos, go to the bridge. I gotta turn a page here. And then don't do that like I just did. Then you're back into the verse. Same patterns, same chord shapes. the outro, but we haven't gotten that far yet. I want to back up and just talk very briefly about this bridge, because this does involve a few different things that we haven't already discussed. Alright, so the bridge where the vocal comes back in starts on the G5 add 9 chord to the F5. That's all on the chart very clearly. Then there's this cool walk up that I've put in the tablature. You know, walks up and then comes back down. Okay? And then back to the G5, walk up again. So this walk up keeps happening. And then you go to the end of the bridge. It's like there's a break on beat 1, and then you come in on the and. So it's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 1. What happens there in measure 48, there's a couple of drop beats. It's actually a 2-4 measure. So rhythmically, there's just one beat silence, and then you're back into the verse, the last verse. So rhythmically and notation-wise and all that good stuff, that's what's going on in the bridge, of course, with the vocal, which I can't think of the exact lyrics right now, but like I said, I'm sure you know this tune probably much better than myself even at this point, and you'll certainly be playing it at a higher level in short order. So, at any rate, that's the bridge. You go into the last verse, and there's not much need to talk about that. That's the same as all the other verses, same shapes. The one thing is you'll see measures 55 through 58. I put a repeat sign around them and said you play that 3 times total. That's just the tag. If you ain't got love, you ain't got nothing at all. And, you know, at the end of the verse, that, you know, the last verse, he tags that, you know, so you play it 3 times total. And after that happens, it's just guitar and harmonica soloing and kind of some vocal ad-libs. That is where I put measure 59 through 60. And just feel free to repeat that to your heart's content, you know. Certainly, especially if you're jamming with somebody else, you know, repeat that, you know, as long as you're having fun, really. So it's just that same. You know? And when you've had your fill of that, then you want to come out of it. You're going to move on to measure 61. And I've put a retard there, because it slows down pretty considerably. You know, and it goes to this very free time sort of guitar and vocal thing where it's all this great bluesy stuff going on. And I put some fermatas at the end of it. So I'm going to play that now. It's like I'm coming out of this ad-lib section, 59 through 60. And here we go. And that's where he's singing, if you ain't got love, you ain't got, you know, and then there's like a, you know, great like vocal bluesy lick there. I'll let you cover the vocals. I don't really know the lyrics here, so instead of screwing them up, I'll just let you fill in the lyrics there. But yeah, then to the last few measures, it's even slower. And then you do the harmonics again, right on the end. You hit the open D string and right at the 5th fret, you just grab those 3 strings. And I said you do the harmonics again, not to be confused within this piece, if that's the first time there's any harmonics in here, but that sort of a lick is the same thing that ended the Soulstorm Coming, so that's why I said again. So that's the tune. Just for clarity's sake, I'm going to play without talking. I'm going to pretend that I'm playing 59 through 60, jamming, vamping on that little ad-lib section, and then ending the tune. And we'll leave it at that. You know, try to play some sort of, you know, shouldn't have done that, but this guitar and harmonica. And there's the tune. So, yeah, the last thing that I might mention, just playing-wise and performance-wise, I don't know if this video picked up what my left-hand foot was doing, and probably not because of where the lens is at. But I'm certainly tapping my foot and keeping time there. You know, and I do that when I play anything that's really groove-dependent. And most great music is, of course, so, you know, I don't know if you tap your foot when you play or not, but if you don't, you know, it might be something to explore and see if it helps you, you know. Not everybody does, but I find that personally, for me, it really helps me to hold down a steady groove and keep the time very, you know, very good and consistent, and all the stuff we want in music, so, yeah, that's what's going on in that tune, and thank you again. I hope that helps, and I know that was a bit longer than we planned on, but I wanted to cover all those various details. So let me know if you have any other questions, and you know, we'll be in touch. Thanks again.